Welcome to the Summit for Wellness podcast, where we help you climb to the peak of your health. And now, here is your host, Brian Carroll.
Welcome, folks, to the Summit for Wellness podcast. Today, we have a great guest for you. He's coming on to talk about tonic herbs from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective. So our guest has pursued the twin disciplines of Kung Fu and TCM for the past 40 years. He holds master ranks in 2 Kung Fu styles and teaches for several large international martial arts organizations. His study of traditional Kung Fu has led him to train in the arts of trauma medicine and Sheng Kung, which I'm sure I'm going to butcher a lot of the TCM sayings here. He became a direct disciple of Master Yin Yang Gao, learning herbal and trauma medicine. In addition, he became the sole inheritor of the Gao family healing methods and became their only representative outside the 300-year-old family tradition. He has operated herbal clinics in 3 states. He teaches at the East-West School of Planetary Herbology, where he conducts online chats and materia medica and case studies. And he also mentors herbal students in completing their memberships into the American Herbalist Guild. Please welcome Miles Coleman.
Hey, good to be on here, Brian. Thanks for that intro.
Yeah, Miles. I never knew how extensive your background was prior to our talk. Can you go into a little bit about what got you started in all of your disciplines?
Yeah, sure can. And I hear that from a lot of people. I guess maybe I need to self-promote a little bit more. But way back in the 70s when I was a youngster, I saw the Kung Fu series, the original one with David Carradine. And I was growing up in a very rural community in northern Wisconsin. And it just really made sense to me. That lifestyle, the holisticness of it, of martial movement and philosophy, meditation, and so I started studying martial arts, and then was lucky enough to find a Kung Fu instructor had moved into our area. And that just led me deeper down the Kung Fu trail, so to speak. And in Chinese culture, all those things are interwoven. You know, martial arts, spirituality, cultural perspective, medicine. It's if you study the principles, they apply to all those different branches. So as I was studying what was called Shaolin, which is a very Buddhist-based martial art, and is very dynamic and physical. That led me into the study of what we would call the internal arts, things like Tai Chi and so forth and so on. And then I saw that there was medicine. There was medicine associated with that. And classically, there are like these five branches of Chinese medicine. And I got really interested in the herbal aspect of things in Qi Gong. And so then, life is a journey, so I got interested in that, and I came across Michael Tierra's school, and I started training with him, and then I found another Kung Fu teacher, and I lived in Taiwan for a while and studied with him, and on and on and on, so one step led to another.
And it all brought you to a point where you are actually now opening up your own school, is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. So I've always had this saying the last few years that there's no difference between a martial arts school and an herb school. And the reason that I say that is I think a lot of the attributes you have to be a healer or herbalist can be developed and strengthened through martial arts training as well. And something I see in the herbal world, it's a huge explosion. People wanting to be herbalists, they're really seeing it as a profession now. And, they're getting good training, but you kind of have to be a very strong person and confident and disciplined and willing, to go out there and heal people. And so I feel that, my martial arts training has really prepared me to help people and empower people. So I've taught for Michael Tierra's school for 20 years, and just recently now I've opened my own school. It's called the Hsin Fa School of Herbal and Energetic Medicine. Hsin Fa is a Taoist term. It means to directly know something by directly experiencing it. And I think all the good herbalism that I ever learned was taught that way, in that it was living and breathing, and you had like this direct transmission coming from your teachers. You smelled the herbs, you tasted the herbs, you ate the herbs. It wasn't this kind of theoretical thing happening, which I am starting to see happen in some herbal traditions. It's becoming kind of intellectual instead of practical and real. So yeah, the school is just opened. It's heavily based on 5-element theory. That's a clinical model I found really effective, and a big part of what I'm promoting. And the goal is to get the information out there and train competent herbalists, because I think it's going to continue to be important in our society as the years go by.
So how long is the herbal program with your school?
Yeah, so the program is 2 years. It's a 330-hour program. And, the first year is laying a lot of foundation, explaining the rudiments, teaching the rudiments of Chinese medicine as it pertains to herbal medicine. There's modules on that. There's modules on studying materia medica, which is the study of the maybe upwards of 500 different medicinal substances used in TCM-based herbalism. There's medicine-making classes, so forth and so on. And then the second year really heavily gets into clinical application. First year is really that kind of foundation, introduction, and then the second year is really honing those talents in clinical work and how to do case studies, tongue and pulse, all those important things. So the model I'm following, again, I see everything in terms of martial arts. So the model I'm following is really almost kind of a model of martial efficiency. So having seen herbal programs, been involved in a really great one, I feel I have some ideas on how I can really streamline that process, get the meat of the information to people and get them out there practicing, which is where you really learn.
So are you thinking about adding any martial arts components or Qi Gong to the school, or is it just strictly herbal based?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's a tri-based program. So the main parts of it are the herbal school, and then I've studied a lot of different healing methods, energetic healing methods from things like Reiki onto a system that my teacher in Taiwan, Master Yin and Yang Gao, had. And I've kind of put all that together, and it's a lot of that now is falling under the general heading of medical Qi Gong, where people are either doing hands-on healing and exchanging qi with another person, or doing specific qigong movements, which means holding postures or teaching postures, using breath and intention, sounds, all to balance the qi in the body. And I call that method Ling Qi, which is actually the original Chinese translation of Reiki, and trying to bring in Reiki practitioners for deeper training. So those are the two branches of the school, and I've set it up that hopefully people will be able to cross-train. If you come in as an herbalist, you can learn some Qigong methodology. If you come in as a medical Qigong person, you can learn some herbal things. And then the martial arts sort of fills that middle position and that grounding position, because I think Chinese martial arts will really help you understand the two other sides, whether it's medical Qigong or herbalism. And that's really pretty traditional in Chinese martial culture, that no matter what style you studied, if you came into the martial part, you would study some form of healing or several methods of healing. Or if you came into healing, you would study the martial side. And when people study the martial side, it doesn't mean that you have to go out and be a mixed martial arts fighter and beat people up and things like that. In China, Kung Fu is really approached as a physical art, as a health art or a cultural art. So there's a lot of ways, you can come into that. And there are certain Chinese martial arts, I think, that are easy to teach in sort of a module fashion, and people can learn chunks and go home and implement it into their lifestyle. And like I say, then the whole system interfaces. You have the physical, you have the spiritual, the mental, and create wholeness in a practitioner. So, yeah.
So you can find out information about the school at blackbeltherbs.com. Do you also have a website specifically for the school?
Right now, yeah. The information on the school is on the Black Belt Herbs website, and you will see there's a heading there for Hsin Fa School of Herbal and Energetic Medicine. I do have a Facebook page for the school that I've just started, where I'm putting some really cool live broadcasts on, and that's the Hsin Fa School of Herbal and Energetic Medicine. And then there's also a Facebook page called Ling Qi as well, Ling QI, Ling Qi. And I post on both of those. So I like to put a lot of information out there, obviously, and raise the interest level and share a lot of stuff, and just give people things of value, whether they're training with me directly or not. So, yes.
So lots of places to go and check out Miles Coleman. Let's talk a little bit more about Qi for some people that don't know what Qi is. Can you explain what Qi is from a TCM perspective?
Yeah, that's a big mystery concept because we don't really have that in Western society. You'll find these energetic concepts in indigenous societies all over the world, under a variety of names. So the basic idea of Qi in TCM, would sort of be like the bioelectricity or the energy of the universe that's working behind the scenes. So for sure there are physiological processes going on and chemical and all of that. But the idea is, if you could just kind of sort of like keep doing reductionist theory and getting beyond what's beyond the atom, what's beyond that, then you're getting down to this idea of this all-pervasive energy that's part of the universe. The Chinese character for it is a picture of a rice bowl with rice, and there's steam rising off. So the connotation there is that you have energy derived from food, and rice is a very vital substance in Chinese culture, but then you kind of have this sort of etheric nature, as you can see the steam sort of rising off of the rice itself. So this connotation that the energy is both tangible and intangible at the same time. And this is felt to be the energy that makes the universe run. And the idea in Chinese culture and TCM is that you're equally connected to the universe. What's going on in the big picture is going on in your body at the same time. You're a little microcosm. And so really, Chinese culture, Chinese medicine, it's all about balancing that qi, that energy, because that's what's really creating health or ill health. And all the other ideas that you'll find in Chinese medicine or Chinese martial culture or spiritual culture are all about keeping that qi harmonious, keeping it in balance. So yeah, it's a difficult concept for Westerners to grasp sometimes initially, yeah.
So how would I balance qi utilizing herbs?
Right. So the idea is that there's just qi, there's just energy, but that it can have these different manifestations. So that's where they create these ideas of, say, like yin and yang, where you're looking at paired opposites, or 5-element theory, or 6 stages or 4 stages. So there are all these ideas of how you're going to sort of intellectually perceive energy. If you look at the 5 branches of Chinese medicine, you have acupuncture, Tuina, which is a form of body work, you have food therapy, you have herbalism, and you have Qi Gong. And those all are focused on balancing the qi, but they all have their own unique methodologies that they do that by. So the herbalist is going to do that from the standpoint of they're going to study these herbs, and they're all going to be put in a specific category. So let's say we have herbs that induce a sweat. Those are diaphoretic herbs, and they are called release the exterior. Well, some of them are hot, and some of them are cold. So the hot ones are going to induce a sweat, very actively yang by opening the pores. The cool ones are going to sort of like release surface tension. They're yin. So the herbalist is going to put together formulas that do all different kinds of things. Maybe they're clearing heat, and they're releasing the exterior, and they're moving blood, and they're tonifying. So by doing that, if the qi is weak or stagnant or whatever it may be, the formula is designed to bring that qi back into balance. Acupuncture is going to do that through needle manipulation. Food therapy is going to eat foods energetically appropriate for your constitution. Qi Gong is going to do that through its methods, breathing or hands-on. Body work's going to do the same thing. So they're all sharing the commonality of balancing that qi through their own methods. Harmonizing is really, really important.
So in today's society, what are some ways that qi starts to become deficient or starts to deplete?
Right. So America is a really paradoxical country because I think a lot of Chinese medicine was created in a culture of deficiency. It was a huge culture. There wasn't enough food. There wasn't enough, of other things. America is strange because it's like we have this seeming abundance of everything. But the paradox is that in Chinese thought, anything at its extreme can lead to the opposite. So we have so much food, but so much of it is such a poor quality that we're really not nourishing ourselves. So even though we're eating a lot and we're, getting obese and creating all these illnesses from overeating, it's creating a certain kind of deficiency in our body. And so, there's that. A lot of times people in their quest to be successful in a career or raise their families, the first things that they start sacrificing are their health. They stop sleeping less. They sacrifice the quality of their relationships. They eat poorly. They eat infrequently. The doubts of being a human being and the job stresses, those start playing on their mind and beings. So really, the idea is we're trying to lead a qi building lifestyle. And that means you're trying to live a healthy lifestyle and not an unhealthy one. So diet, exercise, rest, all these adjunct therapies to keep yourself healthy. I mean, I often joke that if most people would exercise, eat a little better, and have some type of spiritual discipline, there would probably be about an 80% or 90% less need for health practitioners in this country, because those are all the fundamentals of human health. And if you don't have those things, it's just going to be a cascading effect as more serious disease comes on. Western medicine's very good at treating things where they're in that catastrophic stage, but there's no emphasis on what was the process that got you there, And Chinese medicine can treat serious medical conditions, but it really shines in those early stages of things, of finding balance, correcting minor imbalances, getting people back to balance. Now you don't wait 20 years for heart disease to develop. So, yeah. Is
there a way that you can over-tonify yourself or over-tonify your qi?
Yeah, when you look at the category of herbs in Chinese medicine, when you look at the tonic herbs, and I guess that's really kind of our focus today, there are these 4 different categories. So they'll talk about qi tonics, blood tonics, yin tonics, and yang tonics. Some of them have a more feminine, cooling, building energy. Some of them have a more masculine, hot, fiery energy. And so that's usually the qi tonics and the yang tonics. They create a lot of energy and a lot of vitality and a lot of metabolic heat. So you can have these paradoxes where you can be deficient in some of these things, but yet kind of stagnant in excess in another way. So classically, we won't do certain kinds of tonification if people are really stagnant or excess, because it's almost like shoving a shoving a cork in a bottle. You just block the flow of things, and then things can really get more stagnant. So as in all things, you can overdo it. Usually with things like blood tonics and yin tonics, if you do too much, they have kind of a heavy moistening nature. They might start to stagnate your digestive process. If you do too much qi or yang tonics, then you could start to literally feel too fiery, too agitated, or whatever. So herbal formulas in Chinese medicine are exactly that. They're formulas. There's not really a tradition of taking a single herb. It's always multiple combinations of herbs, anywhere from maybe 4 herbs to 16 herbs in a formula, all of them combining and doing specific actions. And if we're taking tonics, there'll be other herbs in that formula to support it, to help it digest, to help it move, to get to a particular location in the body, to make sure that the herbs flow in a harmonious fashion. Yeah, and classically we would not tonify in an acute situation. So that means like someone they're catching a cold, they're catching the flu. Classically we would say you're not going to add energy to that, because you could add energy to the expression of the acute illness. So yeah, there's certain dictates of when you do and when you don't, for sure.
So could you give some examples of what a tonic herb would be, or a tonic formula?
Right. So the classic Chinese idea of tonic formulas is you have herbs that are going to have an affinity for one of those 4 substances. You're going to either qi, blood, yin, or yang. But you could also have tonics that would have an affinity for an organ or an organ complex, the way that Chinese medicine understands it. Okay? So... And I'm sorry, I'm fuzzing out for a second here, Ryan. Would you state that question again?
I was asking, could you give some examples of a couple of tonic herbs or tonic formulas?
Right. So we have herbs that represent those 4 different categories. A classic qi tonic is going to be something like ginseng. There's many different genuses of it. It's often combined with other herbs that help its digestibility and help it to be moved. Blood tonics are going to be things like Dongui or Hishao Wu, and they're all equally going to be combined with digestive and moving herbs. Yin and Yang are interesting concepts in Chinese medicine. Yin is basically anything that the body is going to use to rebuild itself and maintain homeostasis. So yin tonics are like these deep restorative herbs that feed the body on a deep level, and they often are related to blood tonics, but they work on a deeper level, and they too can have a very heavy, thick kind of nature to them. So they're going to be taken with digestive herbs, and again, herbs that help move them and get them to the appropriate organs and places in the body. And then yang herbs. Yang is more like the adrenal, energetic output of the body, and your heat and warmth and all of that. And so those herbs, because they're very hot and stimulating, many times are combined with herbs that sort of will buffer that effect. So you often will see yin and yang tonics together, or blood and yin tonics together. And there's all, when you study Chinese herbal medicine, there's probably about 150 classic formulas to fit all manner of conditions that are going on. So there are lots of formulas for qi tonification and blood tonification and yin tonification and yang tonification. And they're very complex in what they're doing.
So can an herb be all 4, qi, blood, yin, and yang, or can it only be one, or can it be a combination of a couple?
That's a great question. And it would be yes to all of it. And that's one of the things that's difficult for people when they study herbal medicine, is even though like you'll see these really hard and fast rules, like you never tonify during an acute remedy or an acute situation, all of a sudden you'll find formulas for tonifying in an acute situation. So they have these rules, but they'll frequently sort of break them. So when you look at herbs according to Chinese medicine, and really in other herbal traditions, one herb, might have a half a dozen different actions. It might be tonifying, and it might be moving, and it might release the exterior. And that's kind of the mystery of herbs, is like, how do they know if they can do 5 different functions? How do they know to do the right thing, and not do the other 4? So yeah, to answer that question more deeply, it's like you will find that. You will find herbs in a category that will specifically do a function. And then you'll find some that'll have a combined function, or have a multiplicity of uses, or will have some very unusual paradox quality that makes them very useful clinically, because people are paradoxes. They never purely present their illnesses. They never purely present their constitution. They're always a mixed bag of excess and deficient, and hot and cold, and up and down, and in and out, and health and ill health, all of that. So, yeah.
So you mentioned there's probably around 150 or so formulas in the TCM world. Compared to a lot of Western illnesses, that doesn't seem like very many, since it seems like there's so many Western illnesses. Why is that? And is Western medicine diagnosing too specifically on things, or what do you think with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a saying in Chinese herbal medicine, well, really all of Chinese medicine, it says like, one disease, many formulas. One formula, many diseases. So at the heart and soul of what Chinese medicine is doing is it's not treating Western diseases. It's not saying you have high blood pressure or you have diabetes. It's all based on this idea of pattern discrimination. And the pattern demonstration or discrimination is this idea that your symptoms will come together in a pattern. And so much of that is based on the Chinese conceptualization of the organs. So when they talk about your liver, let's say, it's the function of your liver gallbladder. And there may be very specific correlations between that and Western thought. But then a bunch of stuff will come in, where they assign other functions to it, and that can be, really confusing. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that is so when you diagnose someone, you're actually finding this pattern of disharmony, and that's what you're treating. And so one pattern of disharmony could literally translate out to dozens of different kinds of Western named diseases. So the idea with the Western medicine is like, we're trying to define an illness and then literally create either a medicine or a surgical procedure to deal with that. So this is one of the things that's really confusing for a lot of fledgling people coming into TCM, is how one formula could treat maybe 10 different Western medical diseases that would have no seeming connection according to Western medicine. And again, it's all about that energetics of what's going on. Is there hot in an organ? Is there cold in an organ? Is there deficiency in an organ? And how that's going to lead to all these diseases. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so useful, because people, like I say, are never clearly defined in their pathologies. So when you have this more broad, open-ended method, you can fit people into that. Something like, well, really, a lot of the classic diseases Westerners suffer from, pain and stress-related diseases and all that, TCM really does a beautiful job with that, because it's not so much about the illness, it's about who has the illness. How do you manifest your high blood pressure, and what do you need to do to bring it back into balance, with your constitution and your lifestyle. So, yeah.
So if we were to try and help ourselves, or to understand the constitution of an illness that we have, do we need to start thinking differently than symptom-based, or do we need to start looking deeper at, do I feel hot, cold, or what different symptoms feel like on that type of realm?
Right. Yeah, some of the TCM has been here in this country now, in mainstream for a long time. and it's becoming more and more accepted, obviously. And one of the great things is that there's becoming this, this integration of things. And so where in the past, the two systems didn't talk. Western medicine said this and Chinese medicine said that. Now you're having this beautiful integration, where people are doing research and they're saying, and writing books and research articles and saying, well, if you have high blood pressure, here's how it could correspond to maybe 6 different Chinese patterns, or 12 different Chinese formulas, or 6 different acupuncture protocols. So that's really useful. Because now we're really having that integration in that talk or whatever. And I think there's a definite movement in Western medicine to get more preemptive, and I think a lot of the idea of what they're calling it, functional medicine now. To, I think, take things out of such a scientific realm, and sort of like get more real world with people, and looking at functionality of things. And TCM is very functional. Where it's difficult is it's a very different kind of nomenclature. But it's, once you study it and get a grasp on it, it's a really practical form of medicine. It's just couched in a lot of terms that seem very esoteric and strange to Westerners. Yeah.
Aren't a lot of the Chinese hospitals starting to integrate their Chinese herbalism with more of a Western medicine approach?
Yes, they are. There was just last year, was a group of East-West students went with Michael Tierra. They went to a couple different medical hospitals and interned there, and just came back really excited and all gung-ho, seeing about how the medical model is. They were in one hospital. I'm trying to remember if it was in Chengdu or not. But anyway, the hospital was dispensing over 8,000 doses of herbal medicine a day. And the classic way to do that is in these boiled teas or whatever. But the doctors are trained in Western medicine and they're trained in Chinese medicine. And they have an understanding that of all the different branches of Chinese medicine, a particular condition might correspond well with one method over the other. And same thing, they might say, oh, this is something that is going to really be a good fit for TCM, or you know what, let's do Western medicine with this. But then you'll also see, no matter what the primary thing is they pick, whether, let's say, it's Chinese medicine or Western medicine, each one will support the other. So you'll see a backing up of pharmaceuticals with Chinese herbal medicine or acupuncture, or vice versa. So it's really a beautiful model, and I think really a good example of like where medicine needs to go and is going in this country. And hopefully America's the land of innovation, but I think sometimes we are a little behind the 8 ball. So hopefully we'll be able to do that more and more. Get a more integration going.
So it seems like a lot of Western medicine is really good at supporting somebody if they need immediate attention, like it's a life or death situation. But it seems like Western medicine isn't so good at the long-term game, right? Where if someone's chronically ill, they're not very good at supporting that case. Is there correlation that you've seen over in China where they might use a Western medicine for those immediate I'm going to die cases, and then if it's something that they have more time to work with, they're more likely to use TCM?
Yeah, there's definitely, and there's a lot of stories, from people who were in China, over many decades or had experiences. There's and so I'll say this, I think it's like when to decide which one works better than the other comes down to, I think, probably a question of intuition. And, I think that's something that is lacking a lot in Western medicine. It's so scientific, it's so cut and dried, and there's mistrust of intuition and body knowledge and going out on a limb kind of thing. That can be kind of restrictive. So there's lots of classical stories. They tell one in the 50s how a group of Russian athletes went to China and caught meningitis, viral meningitis, serious, and they were being treated by their team physician, and it wasn't making a dent in it, and the Chinese were pleading with them to let them use some of their classical formulas for a condition like this, and they finally acquiesced, and the athletes responded beautifully and got well. So when to choose one method over another, again, I think it can be dictated by circumstances, but it also can be dictated by the wisdom and the experience of the practitioner. And I think no matter what healing tradition you study, whether it's Western medicine or Eastern or whatever, that's one of the hardest things to develop, is the wisdom of when to apply things, and when to change and shift. And that's nothing anyone can teach necessarily in a school. That's what comes when you get out there and the rubber meets the road, and you do it, and you succeed and you fail and you struggle and try to figure it out. So yeah.
So through lots of experience.
Yeah.
So it's not so cut and dry like people would probably hope. You choose one for this, you choose another for that.
Right. Yeah, and I think I think a lot of people come into alternative forms of medicine because mainstream medicine hasn't met their needs, for whatever reason. And I think most of the alternative medicine is fantastic, but if it has a flaw, it's the flaw that is in all medicine, which is the individual has to be responsible for their own health and well-being. And I often tell people, it's like, you come and do herbal medicine with me, you're going to get benefit. Nobody leaves without benefit. And there's sort of like that first layer, that first level. You do it, and good things start to happen. But immediately you're confronted with that second level, which is, okay, now we got to look at this relationship you're in, and this job that you have, and the food that you're eating, and these issues you're not dealing with. And we got to start looking at your whole life. And that's, again, where it's difficult for people. Western medicine is very good at kind of setting all that aside and saying, well, here's these parameters, or here's this high blood pressure, and we're going to lower that. And it's very good at doing that, but you haven't addressed the root cause. And so in Chinese medicine, holistic medicine, it's really vital that we address that root cause. But those are the hardest changes to make, and those are the choices people are making that put them in this situation in the first place. So if this method has a flaw, it's that it really requires people to be much more involved in their health and well-being, and they're going to have to probably make some difficult choices. They're going to have to make mental, physical, emotional, spiritual choices about their well-being. And so, the practitioner winds up being a life coach and a advocator and a holds you accountable and a healer and all those things. So it's challenging work,
Yeah, and I think it's definitely one of those difficult aspects of being an alternative health practitioner is a lot of people coming to us don't realize that we don't have a magic pill that fixes everything.
Right.
And that they have to put a lot of work in themselves. And for a lot of people, they're not at a point where they're ready to make that change to invest in themselves. They'd rather go to someone that's like, hey, take this pill, and then that pill might work for a year before they have to, update their pill or get higher dosing or change to something else. But like you said, that's not treating the root cause. Whereas a lot of times alternative medicine is looking at the root cause and trying to get you to focus on the root cause. And it takes a lot of work. As a person trying to get better, it takes a long time to get in a state of deficiency, and it takes a long time to get back to harmony or to tonify or to get you back into a state of health.
Right. So true. And, I'm very result driven, and I think TCM is very result driven. And I would say with with the herbal medicine aspect of it, and I think acupuncture and the other branches, it's like people should see benefit in 1 to 7 days, if things are right. If I got the pattern discrimination right and I got the formula, to be a pretty close match or whatever, you should see that benefit in 7 days. Okay. Now that might not necessarily mean like, okay, I have migraines and, a course of herbal treatment, they're gone, 1 or 2 days, they're gone. I've seen some things like that happen, where there can be some radical improvement. Oftentimes it's more gradual, where somebody says, well, I'm still having migraines, but they're in less intensity or they're less frequency. Many times we'll also see something where you do a course of treatment maybe for 10 or 14 days. The person comes back for a follow-up and they say, well, Miles, I can't say that it's better, but something is shifting. So, they're starting to pay attention to their bodies, and they're actually starting to notice that something's happening on a deeper level, that things are starting to shift in a positive direction. I think why people are so fundamentally unhealthy in our society is because they're distracted with so many other things. This is the culture of distraction. And your body's talking to you all the time and sending you signals and messages. But if you're distracted with all kinds of outside concerns, you're not listening to it. And it is going to continue to ramp up its messages to you. So the simple stomach discomfort now becomes an ulcer or a perforated ulcer. So that's a big piece of it, is like getting people to put their health on equal priority, sometimes more priority than other things going on in their life. I would surmise that that's probably always been an issue as long as there's been human beings.
That's probably true.
Right.
So let's go back to Qi, blood, Yin and Yang. Can you differentiate these four even deeper? And then from there, because we're getting kind of short on time, we can come back next week and talk deeper on about tonifying herbs and more about them after that.
Yeah, we can. And let's maybe just do a little brief sort of explanation, maybe a little clarity on sort of like those 4 tonic categories. So I should say real quick, that the Chinese idea of tonifying is that you're deficient in something, and so you're giving an herb that's going to add into that. So it's almost like, if you were starving and weren't eating, here's food to, fill you up and strengthen you. My idea of tonification is a little bit different. I almost say that anything could be tonifying. So, it's like if you had a real excess condition, let's say you had really hot red arthritis inflammation in your hands, and that's what we would call an excess condition. Well, if I apply herbs that are very detoxifying and cooling and clearing, we bring all that inflammation, all that heat, we bring it down. So to my way of mind, that's tonifying. Because what I'm doing is I'm bringing things to the middle. If there's too much of something, then I'm bringing it closer to balance. If I lack something, I can bring it up towards the middle by adding to it and bringing it into balance. That's just a little different conceptualization I have, because that literally would make most of Chinese herbal medicine or other medicine tonifying by nature. And that really is a principle in Chinese medicine, is about harmonization. But classically what we're doing when we talk tonics is we're talking these herbs that are going to add to the body when it's lacking something. So Qi tonics are going to be all kinds of herbs that are going to help stimulate, the production of Qi in the body. And Qi is going to enable you to have, vitality and energy. But the Qi also runs, it's like the electricity running a lot of the organ complexes. So you could have poor digestion, and we could put Qi tonics in there so the digestion works better. So when you talk Qi, you're talking the ability of the body to extract Qi and nutrition from food, water, air, and then the sort of alchemical process by which the body produces qi in and of itself. And there are many, many, many kinds of qi tonics. In Western herbalism, they often talk about adaptogens. That's a term that gets thrown around a lot, sort of like herbs that help the body adapt to external stress factors. So if you're not sleeping, getting enough sleep, or you have demands on your energy or mental process, these herbs can add to it and help you put out more expenditure, so to speak. So it's tonic idea, but a little bit different. So qi tonics are going to help you to do that. Blood tonics. Blood is a very unique substance in Chinese medicine. It's felt to carry qi to all the organs, but it also stores emotions as well. So things like post-traumatic stress disorder and all kinds of mental illness are often treated through the heart, its corresponding organ, and blood. There's a connection there. So blood deficiency is a huge pattern in TCM. It's sort of like anemia, but it's more inclusive than that. Also, ideas of blood stagnation would go along with that. And then, like we talked about, we have yin and yang. So yin tonics are going to be those things that help you rebuild yourself. So like sleep is going to be the ultimate yin tonic. Okay. A lot of Americans simply they suffer from burnout. It's just they're not sleeping enough, they're not eating the right foods, they're not resting enough, and those are often the things people sacrifice. And then you have those yang tonics, which are creating health and vitality and warmth. The whole sexual function of human beings and their libido often falls under the yang tonification category, or yang energy. So yin and yang, yin is basically that part of your body that says, hey, Miles, go to bed, go to sleep, rest, and replenish yourself. And then the yang side is that part of us that says, hey, Miles, get up, get motivated, make things happen, follow your life mission, and let's do it. So to some degree, like the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. But again, as in all things TCM, much more than that.
Well, thanks for that, Miles. That was a great explanation of those 4 components. Thank you for coming onto the show. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about tonic herbs. We are going to do a part 2 with Miles next week. So, Miles, are you teaching about tonifying herbs and stuff in your Hsin Fa School?
Yeah, it's always been a major interest of mine, and the whole tonic harmony idea is, again, something that's a real underpinning, and people would definitely learn about that. I'll say real quick, there's an organization called the American Herbalist Guild. Probably a lot of people don't know about that. It's the HG. You can look that up, but it's very inexpensive to join as a member. It's an organization of professional clinical herbalists, and they'll hold monthly webinars. And I believe it's in April. I'm going to be doing a talk for them, and it's going to be on constitutional medicine. But I've also done some in the past about tonic herbs, and you'll find other people have done discussions as well. But yeah, and there's a great interest in the Chinese tonic herb and tonic herbs from other cultures. Again, you wouldn't think America is going to be a land of deficiency because we have so much of stuff, but we use tons of Chinese tonic herbs with seemingly healthy people because they're really deficient in a lot of ways. So yes, yep.
Okay, you can find more about Miles Coleman at blackbeltherbs.com. He also has his Facebook pages. You want to rattle off all those pages one more time? Yep. So I've got a number of them. So there's the Hsin Fa School of Herbal and Energetic Medicine. That's devoted to stuff about the school I've opened. I have a page called Black Belt Herbs on Facebook. That focuses a lot on treatment of pain and trauma and sports injuries. Then there's also the page on the medical Qi Gong method that I teach on Ling Qi, and those are all on Facebook. And so you'll find a lot of posts kind of going back and forth between the 3 of them. Yeah, you can check it all out on those 3 pages and the website. Awesome, Miles. Thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it,
Cool.
and we all enjoyed listening to you talk.
All right. Thank you very much.
We will talk to you next week. You have been listening to Miles Coleman talking about tonic herbs. This is part 1 of a 2-part series on tonic herbs. So listen next week for part 2 of the series, Tonic Herbs with Miles Coleman.
You have been listening to the Summit for Wellness podcast. If you are ready to climb to the peak of your health, visit summitforwellness.com for more information. As you continue on your journey, we hope that you will join us next time on the Summit for Wellness podcast.